to us on Monday. Now, with all of these surreal moments, this pair could be in line for yet another one. Of course, they won a Super Bowl together in Green Bay against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Perhaps another one is on the horizon.
Perhaps. Nostalgia is really cool, Kevin Clark, but it's not 2006, and Aaron Rodgers is not 22. What are your expectations for the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers this year?
Surreal is not the phrase I would use, Dan. I believe the phrase is the definition of insanity is running it back with Aaron Rodgers and expecting different results. I look at this guy, and he's had an amazing career. He's one of the most talented guys in the history of the position. But last year, he was 27th in the league in deep ball completion percentage. He got rid of the ball quicker than anybody in the league, and because of that, threw shorter passes than anybody in the league. He had more throws under 10 yards than anybody in the last 5 years. I just don't see a lot of hope here. Mike Tomlin is a better coach than Mike McCarthy. Not a lot of expectations of Pittsburgh.
To Cleveland, where our Browns reporter Daniel Oyefusi is, as usual, tracking a quarterback competition as it continues to develop.
At Browns OTAs, all eyes are on the ongoing quarterback competition between Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. Sanders and Watson have split first-team reps throughout the spring, and first-year coach Todd Monken was complimentary of both quarterbacks this week. Watson hasn't played since tearing his Achilles in October 2024, but Monken said he's all for a clean slate. And though Watson turns 31 this fall, Monken said his athleticism is still one of his superpowers. Monken also spoke highly of Sanders' development in year 2, saying he's come a long way in terms of his progressions and his understanding of concepts. Now, Monken has said he would love to leave the offseason workout program and enter training camp with a clear starter, but he's going to let this competition play out and not rush into a decision. When asked for an updated timeline to name a starter, Monken said, "We'll have it set for Jacksonville in week 1.
Right, that's great. That's exactly when they need to have it set for Bill Barnwell. But no matter who the quarterback is, what does Todd Monken's offense need to do to take the pressure off of him?
They need to get the run game going. These quarterbacks, no matter who they pick, no one, there's going to be a great mix here. Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders, 89th and 90th amongst quarterbacks who threw 100 passes or more over the past 2 seasons. This running game, 14th in success rate in 22 and 23, 30th though, after Nick Chubb got hurt over the last 2 seasons. So they're going to need to get the run game going. Probably going to be quarterback changes throughout the year, no matter who starts the season in week 1. So let's get the run game going, take some of the pressure off of it.
Quarterback changes in Cleveland. Would that be a first? Anyway, let's stay along the coast of Lake Erie and head to Buffalo, where Josh Allen and the Bills got OTAs underway this week under new head coach Joe Brady. Elena Getzenberg has the latest on how Allen and things are shaping up early on in Buffalo.
One of the most common words heard here at One Bills Drive this week is exciting, as OTAs got underway with first-time head coach Joe Brady. Linebacker Terrell Bernard, one of 2 team captains from last year's team, along with quarterback Josh Allen, noted that it feels like a new era of Bills football and that brings with it a fresh start, which is exciting. He said that Brady's energetic personality has been on display in the building. Out on the practice field, I noticed a little bit of that in the form of the music having a bit more of a pop to it, a little louder at times than perhaps a traditional Sean McDermott practice would. When talking to people in the building, they said that it feels a little looser, a little bit more relaxed than it was under McDermott. The Bills have had strong participation for these practices, including players coming off injuries like Allen himself and tight end Dalton Kincaid. Now, Brady's been in this building since 2022, so for the offensive players, actually the biggest adjustment now for Kincaid and getting used to having Brady as the head coach is seeing him cheer on players on the defensive side.
Mina, Elena talking about the offense, but you have your eye on the defense where there's a new coordinator. What has to happen up front there in order for the team to reach its ceiling?
Yeah, by far the more significant change in Buffalo, given that the offensive coordinator is now the head coach, is going to be the loss of Sean McDermott, who was, that defensive-minded head coach, and what their new defensive coordinator, Jim Leonard, brings to the table. He has a fantastic reputation going back to college, but over the last couple of years, he's been part of that Denver defense, which is one of the best in the NFL. However, the players he had to work with in Denver were very different in terms of the speed of the pass rush and the talent of the secondary. So this is a challenge for him and also for this Bills defense that must be better at stopping the run than they were last season when they were amongst the NFL's worst in run defense.
You know who else was among the NFL's worst in that last year was the New York Giants, who also started OTAs this week as New head coach John Harbaugh got his first real look at the roster. So what stood out in Giants camp this week? Well, let's check in with Giants reporter Jordan Raanan.
Watching Giants OTAs this week, it had a very different look. Aside from new coach John Harbaugh running 50 live reps at Thursday's practice, quarterback Jaxson Dart spent the majority of his reps under center. That's a major change in new coordinator Matt Nagy's offense. Dart spent just 10.3% of his offensive snaps as a rookie under center. But Dart said he's going to be doing a lot of new things this season, among them being under center with the action game, a lot of alerts and kills at the line of scrimmage. There's a lot put on the quarterback's shoulders, and he's also been working on his cadence. But that might not be the only difference we see with Dart this season. He conceded at a town hall earlier this week that the biggest thing he learned as a rookie was that he has to remain on the field in order for his team to be successful. He even said the NFL is a lot different than college. This is a major change in rhetoric for Dart heading into year 2, with the admission that he's going to be more selective of when to run and when to slide.
Jaxson Dart was pretty good when he was on the field last year. A strong rookie season, led all rookies in pass and rush touchdowns. 9 rushing touchdowns were actually the second most by a rookie quarterback since 1950, and he led all quarterbacks, rookie or otherwise, in rushing yards from week 4 on last year. So, Bill, when you look at Jaxson Dart coming off that strong rookie season, what do you look at as the next step, and how do you assess what he's got in front of him?
Yeah, it's working in the offense in rhythm, Dan. You look at what he did last year, so much of it was, like you said, as a runner on those design runs, on scrambles. And then as a passer, a lot of it was RPOs, very quick throws, or those throws that were happening on those scramble drills as an improviser. In the rhythm, 1.5 to 3 seconds. He had the worst QBR in football. He wasn't even in rhythm as often, maybe as you would hope for some other quarterbacks. And so, challenge for the Giants now and Matt Nagy is going to be getting him throws in the structure of the offense, getting Nagy to trust the route distributions, getting him to trust that offensive line, which is obviously has some new faces as well, and then getting him to operate before he has to run. If he can avoid needing to run, needing to scramble, needing to extend plays, that's going to be fewer hits, and it's going to be hopefully a quarterback who makes it through the entire season.
Bill is exactly right. You look at the numbers here, and there's 2 things Jaxson Dart was really good at. He was top 5 in throwing on the run when he was moving at over 8 miles per hour, according to Next Gen Stats. And he was also good at scrambling. And for me, you got to take those 2 things and you got to marry them with the in-rhythm throws and get him almost like Caleb Williams last year, where he still held onto the ball long when he earned it, when he deserved it, when it justified it, to say, hey, I'm going to be back there trying to make things happen. But he also said, hey, we're going to do quick game stuff. We're going to get the ball out quickly. We're going to marry those 2 things and either get rid of the ball quickly or make things happen on a 5 or 6 second play. What you don't want is a 3-4 second play that develops and takes a long time for no reason. I'm looking forward to those kind of plays, those kind of middle hitter plays to take a next step in Jaxson Dart's game. If he's healthy, they can make the playoffs this year.
Oh, interesting. We'll see how the Giants do on that. News coming out of New York last night, though, Mina, as the Giants extended GM Joe Schoen. What do you think of that move?
I found it puzzling, I'll be honest. I'm not quite sure why they were in a rush to do this. Straight up, like, I don't, somebody, you know, are they going to face competition for Joe Schoen's services at some point? I really don't know. Especially, like, when you think about this team and what it's been underneath Schoen. Obviously, the moves that he gets the most criticism for was the combined decision to pay Daniel Jones and franchise Saquon, let Saquon walk. But it's really more than that. I think his probably biggest problem as a GM has been the inability to fix the offensive line, which during his tenure ranks 25th in pass block win. At times has looked worse. The best offensive lineman is one he didn't draft. That would be Andrew Thomas, who's a very good player. But that's been just such an issue for this team for so long now. And then defensively, a lot of the free agent signings have simply not worked out. And you saw that. This is one of the worst defenses in football last season because of it. Malik Neighbors is his best draft pick. Obviously, it was a top pick, so he was kind of a no-brainer as a player, but he now is battling injury. And then you look at that receiver core, if Neighbors misses any time, and you get really concerned about the depth behind him. So I guess in totality, yeah, I do not feel like the body of work has produced a winning record. Obviously, that's been the case if you look at them over the last few years and how the Giants have finished. And ultimately, this decision is I don't really understand it.
Yeah, you mentioned those issues with the roster. Go back to his first draft. I mean, they drafted Evan Neal in the top 10 ahead of Charles Cross, who became a cornerstone tackle for Seattle as they won the Super Bowl last year. Following year, they take Deonte Banks in the first round ahead of Joey Porter Jr., who's become a star cornerback in Pittsburgh. Those kind of core picks, what Joe Schoen was brought in to do after having success in Buffalo under Brandon Beane, have not really worked out. 25 drafts were off to a pretty good start, but 22 to 24, they had 11 top 100 picks. 3 of those guys might be starting this year. Neighbors, who we know is hurt, Tyler Nubin at safety, and Drew Phillips, their nickelback. So they don't really have that core of young talent that Shane was supposed to bring in. And obviously, with John Harbaugh, potentially there's being some conflict there in terms of who's making the decisions. Just surprised they made this decision now instead of seeing this play out for a year, maybe evaluating after the season.
All right, well, after firing the Giants fans up with all that analysis, we have more bad news. New on NFL Live, Giants defensive lineman Roy Robertson-Harris tore his Achilles at Thursday's OTA workout and is expected to miss the 2026 season as a result. That's per our Jordan Renan, who you heard from earlier. Kevin, how bad is this bad news for the Giants defense?
It's not good, Dan. They were able to, after they traded Dexter Lawrence, add in a couple guys, DJ Reader, Shelby Harris. But if you've got defensive linemen available after the draft, they're not going to be instant impact guys. Okay, that's just how this league works with defensive linemen. So you lose a potential starter there. It just puts a spotlight on the guys who have to be able to rush the passer this year for the defense to have any success. We know who that is. Abdul Carter, who had the most quick pass rushes in football last year, getting to the quarterback in under 2.5 seconds. He obviously led all rookies in quarterback pressures as well. And then Reese, obviously the rookie out of Ohio State. Those guys have to get pressure on the quarterback because Dexter Lawrence was able to command so many double teams last year. He was able to get to the quarterback from an interior spot. He was a game wrecker. So that, to me, is the biggest thing. They're very, very thin at defensive line. This injury is only going to accent that.
Absolutely. We'll see. They are loaded at the pass rush spots.
Sure.
Maybe they just have to ask that much more of all those guys. We are just getting started. Released by the Patriots back in March. Recently, he was asked about some chatter that's out there about the possibility of him and his brother, Stefon Diggs, landing in Washington.
We're talking football here. As little brother just showed up. If we're talking football, how long will it take if we get you guys in one of our uniforms?
That's what everybody's talking about right now. We're going to talk about it real soon.
Oh, a tease from the Diggs brothers. If they end up in Washington, do you like that? You like that fit?
I do. Stefon Diggs still has gas left in the tank. Last year, the highest catch rate in all of football. He did sacrifice a little bit of yardage as far as that goes. He was running routes closer to line of scrimmage, but he was also the best crossing route. We're seeing right there, the best crossing route runner in football last year. So he can be a quarterback's best friend. Jaden Daniels is going to be under center a lot more. I talked to Dan Quinn about this a couple weeks ago. He wants more explosives down the field. Another weapon gives Washington that. I love the fit. They got to go out and get a weapon. I thought they'd get Carnell Tate, somebody like that in the draft. Tennessee goes and gets him early. They end up with Sonny Styles, so I think it's going to end up being the best player in the draft. You get a wide receiver this way, everything works out.
Throwing in like a hot take right at the end there, just sneaking it in about Sonny Styles. I love that.
That's what I do.
Yeah, Stefon Diggs would honestly help most NFL teams. Let's just start there. I like to call him professional wide receiver because that's what he does. He's just, he runs precise routes. He is going to be where you need him to be, and he's going to catch the football. On short passes last year, he had an 89% catch rate, which is the best of any receiver in the NFL. He was third in yards per route run, by the way, behind only Puka Nacua and Christian McCaffrey. So every team makes sense. Washington makes sense. I would throw out the Raiders, though, as a team that really should consider making this play because right now that receiving group is pretty thin, and when the young quarterback Fernando Mendoza eventually starts, it would really help him to have a receiver like Stefon Diggs who he can rely on in those situations.
Yeah, the Raiders are such a good fit for Stefon Diggs. Think about that offense Clint Kubiak was running last year in Seattle. Heavy boot action, a lot of crossers coming across the middle of the field. Well, what did our friend Kevin Clark just say? Best wide receiver in football on crossing routes last year was Stefon Diggs. He was second in the NFL in receiver score. ESPN's metric last year, which measures how good you are at getting open, catching the ball, and creating after the catch. He just didn't play a lot of snaps. Only played about half of the snaps last year for the Patriots. So if Diggs can be in that situational role, they're going to be probably a pretty heavy 12 personnel team in Las Vegas. So you don't need him to play every single snap, but on passing downs in key situations like he was for Drake May last year, I think Stefon Diggs could be a really valuable wide receiver for Jorge Mendoza in his first season with the Raiders. He
was for Drake May. He recorded the first 1,000-yard season by a receiver for the Patriots since Julian Edelman in 2019. That was pretty good, and also a while ago. He's not the only one who's still a free agent who you've heard of. This is a pretty good list of guys. You got Stefon Diggs, Deebo Samuel at wide receiver. You got some edge rushers, Joey Bosa, Hassan Reddick. 50 Pro Bowl selections and 16 All-Pro selections between all those guys, which leads us now to our quick reads. We've seen some of the big free agent names are still out there, Mina. So where do some of these guys that are on that list fit best?
Yeah, Joey Bosa, I think, is an interesting name for teams that need pass rushers, and one of those teams is the Green Bay Packers, especially with Micah Parsons' status early in the season, up in the year. This is a very thin pass rushing group right now, very thin defensive line, period. And while I'm not sure Joey Bosa can give you an entire season, even having him in the beginning would be helpful. Last year with Buffalo, when he did play, he actually ranked 15th league-wide in pressure rate, so he still got something in the tank, and the Packers desperately need anything in the tank.
Chicago, and Taylor Decker does make sense there. Ozzie Trapilo tore his patella late in the year. He's probably not going to be ready to play for most of this season. A lot of guys there who they don't necessarily love at left tackle. Braxton Jones, Theo Benedict. They signed Jedrick Wills, who sat out of football last season. Guys with left tackle experience, but who haven't played that position at a high level recently. Denver is an experienced, solid left tackle, and oh, by the way, he played for Ben Johnson in Detroit when Ben Johnson was there the past couple of years, so this system should fit right in. So, logical one-year rental there in Chicago.
Let's give more guys to the Chicago Bears. Cameron Jordan, I'm only doing this because I can't do Russell Wilson to television. But Cameron Jordan, to me, he still has pass rush left in the tank. If you're available this year, right now, it means you're not going to be Miami Heat Shaq as far as veteran additions. You're going to be Suns Shaq. That's all you got to be if you're signing right now. Sign with a contender. The Bears are that. Give you some pass rush. I think the best fit would be going him back to New Orleans. Barring that, let's go to Chicago.
I'll tell you one thing you can count on with Cam Jordan is he's going to play.
Yes.
Only missed 2 games in 15.
Lions camp, Asset Lions camp in
Leverkusen, playing soccer, going to the local bounce house, and even attending school while they were there for the summers.
This is the kindergarten that I went to, me and my brothers, when we were younger, where I used to spend all my summers in Hittorf. Hallo, 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 wie geht's? Hallo, hallo. Ich hab Jersey für euch, paar Pompoms für die Kinder. Let's go, Lions! Yeah.
In June, the entire family once again traveled to Germany. Amon-Ra visiting Munich for the first time, where he tried the local cuisine.
Wir essen jetzt. Wir essen. Indonesien.
I'm ready. Got myself a currywurst. We both got the currywurst. It's cool. It's my first time here, so I didn't really know what to expect, but yeah, it's been fun.
Amon-Ra's annual trip to Germany this year included 2 American football camps. One in Munich.
Bang! Bang!
And the other in Cologne, minutes from where his mother grew up.
This is like her home, so to be out here with her, it means a lot just because I know how much it means to her. Say hi! Jawohl!
Für sie ist es, glaube ich, auch ganz normal hier zu sein. Ne? Es ist praktisch die zweite Heimat.
Bang!
Amon-Ra, der hat eine Lücke und wenn er eine Lücke hat, dann geht er ab und zwar in die Endzone. Da ist der erste Touchdown in diesem Spiel für den Mann aus Leverkusen, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Ich will einfach Hallo sagen zu allen meinen Zuschauern in Deutschland. Ich liebe euch und danke für alles. I feel like, I've spent enough time there, made enough friends there, know enough people there to call that my second home.
Amon-Ra has been part of a pretty good Lions offense in Detroit, but that offense sputtered a little bit in 2025. A couple of areas where they saw the biggest drop-off. Third down offense, they went from 4th in 2024 to 20th last year, and pass blocking dropped from 12th all the way down to 31st. So they were the second worst pass blocking team in the NFL, which is the lowest they've ranked in 5 seasons under Dan Campbell. So, Mina, when you look at the Lions and this offense, and it didn't do what we expected it to do last year, how much of that do you put on the offensive line?
A lot, a great deal. So Jared Goff, we've talked about this a long time over the course of his career. He is a quarterback where there's a pretty big gap between his performance when he's kept clean versus under pressure. And people say, well, that's true of any quarterback. I would say it's more of him. However, I would also add that very few quarterbacks, I think, would have thrived behind that Lions offensive line at points last season. You mentioned their pass block win rate. Something I'll highlight is Goff faced the 5th highest rate of quick pressures of any high-volume quarterbacks in the NFL. Compare that to the prior season when he was 20th, and I think you can see the single biggest culprit for the struggles in the passing game, and it affected everything. His time to throw was way down because he knew he was getting pressured. The average at the target declined as well, both career lows in Detroit. So to me, that has to be the focus. It's been the focus for Detroit this offseason, obviously in the draft and some additions in free agency. They know their offensive line needs to get better because last season, I would say it was the single biggest problem with this offense.
Yeah, that also infected the run game as well, which was so impactful for them in earlier seasons. They still had their explosives here and there with Jahmyr Gibbs, but they dropped from 6th in success rate over the prior 2 seasons to 25th last season. And when you have that run game drop-off, it not only doesn't mean you're not doing well on first down, it makes your third downs harder as well. They had the shortest average distance to get the first down, and then third down in 23 and 24. That was 21st last season. So Jared Goff, who, like you said, has a huge gap between how he does against pressure and when he's kept clean, was facing more obvious passing situations on third down, fewer running situations on third down. The Lions love to run the ball on 3rd and medium when they can. Jared Goff was in those spots, the offensive line was in those spots, and you saw more pass pressure and more drives fail as a result.
Yeah, when you look at the Lions' biggest problem last year, the irony is it was a strength a couple years ago. They built their entire franchise through the trenches, and then all of a sudden you lose the best center in football to retirement. You have injuries all over the place, and all of a sudden it's a weakness. And that happens very, very quickly in the NFL. Last year, if you look at the number of lineup combinations in the offensive line that played over 50 snaps, they were just about the most unstable offensive line in football. You saw it. Bill mentioned it earlier. The amount of chunk plays on the ground, they go from 6th to not even in the top 20 last year. That's an offensive line stat to me. You think about the violence they were able to inflict on defenses 5-10 yards down the field in the run game. It just wasn't there. It wasn't the identity that Dan Campbell wants. Dan Campbell was a heck of a blocker when he played. I mean, we just saw it. There's no – we were looking at a low lights thing of Jared Goff getting his teeth kicked in. Didn't look like we were about to run out of plays where that happened.
I think they had to cut that down. Yeah.
He was under assault the entire season last year. Cade Mays, Blake Miller, both of those guys will be day one starters. This will get addressed. They'll be fine this year.
And they're talking about moving Penei Sewell from right tackle to left tackle as well. He did play half his games at right and half at left in 2021, so they feel like that should work. Up next on NFL Live, after bringing back Aaron Rodgers and bringing some new faces in. 10 teams kicking off off-season workouts this week, and in case you haven't been paying attention to NFL Live or any of our other shows, Aaron Rodgers is back in action, and his new teammate Michael Pittman was asked if he was surprised to see Rodgers out there this week with the team.
Partially not. I mean, I had the hope that he was coming back, and I had a good feeling about it. But, you never know. I mean, Aaron's going to do what Aaron wants to do, right? So, but definitely happy to have him back for sure.
Bill, the Steelers traded for Pittman before I guess they were sure about Rodgers coming back, but you think it's a good fit with Rodgers and the Steelers offense?
Yes and no. You said two. It's a good fit for Aaron Rodgers. I don't know that it's a good fit for the Steelers offense. So let me explain. Aaron Rodgers last year, as our Kevin Clark mentioned earlier in the show, threw the shortest average pass of anybody in football. The only guy under 6 air yards per attempt a year ago. Michael Pittman, 61st out of 68 qualifying receivers in terms of air yards per target. So a guy who is catching underneath throws from a quarterback who throws a lot of underneath passes, that's a good fit. But what the Steelers really needed is an explosive downfield player. They were 30th last year in explosive play rate on dropbacks, which Aaron Rodgers was making the majority of. So I don't know if Pittman is a great fit for the Steelers offense and what they needed, even if he might be a good fit for the passes Aaron Rodgers wants to throw.
Pittman averaged the 5th fewest yards per reception last year among the 38 players who had at least 100 targets. In case you missed it, new Dolphins quarterback Malik Willis was asked this week about the Jalen Waddle trade to Denver. He didn't hold back.
It was unfortunate, for sure, to say the least. That's a really good player, and I would have loved to play with him, but that's above my pay grade. That's out of my hands.
Mina, his pay grade's fairly high, but when you look at this Dolphins roster now, where's the production going to come from?
Yeah, it's above his pay grade, but it does make me wonder whether he knew about the trade or would have been willing to sign in Miami if he had known what his receiver corps was going to look like, because quite candidly, it is amongst the worst in the NFL. And for this offense to be successful, I really think they need one of the young players, maybe Chris Bell, who they drafted this year, to hit. But perhaps more importantly, the run game has to be one of the best in the league. And I do think that's feasible because this was a rushing attack that's been very good over the last few years. Granted, you lose Mike McDaniel, your play caller, but the offensive line is one that has started to improve a great deal. Obviously, they still have Devon Achane. And now you add a quarterback who is one of the most dynamic rushing threats in the league. So that two-headed attack that in the backfield, I think, could be a real problem for defenses. I just fear that they won't have to account for the passing attack as much.
Yeah, Dolphins locking up Devon Achane on a new deal, signing Malik Willis in free agency. Looks like they're planning to build it all out of that run game for a while at least. In case you missed it, Matthew Stafford and the Rams reached agreement on a one-year, $55 million contract extension. It could be worth up to $60 million next year with incentives. About $5 million in incentives each year. Basically, he now has 2 years left on his contract instead of just the one. And if he hits all the incentives, plays both years, he can make $105 million over the next 2 years. Kevin, I don't know if you remember, but the Rams took a quarterback in the first round of this year's draft. What does the Stafford extension tell you about their plans?
Well, first of all, very few people are above Matthew Stafford's pay grade. Let's get that out of the way. He can't say that in a press conference if he doesn't like something. But I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing a guy who's probably the best quarterback in football right now, and it just reinforces how much I don't like the Ty Simpson pick. This is a franchise that went all in. That was the big phrase, all in, to win a Super Bowl a couple years ago. They were able to take their cap medicine, retool, and compete for a Super Bowl again. And now is the time, on the cusp of winning another Super Bowl, to start planning for 2028. I just don't like it. I thought Mekhi Lemon was a better option. I thought any of the skill guys there. You had tight ends on the board. They apparently want to put 8 tight ends at once out there. Maybe take one of those guys in the first round. I just didn't like, at that point, future-proofing your franchise when I think you're the favorite to win the Super Bowl this year. I don't like it. This contract is well-deserved, but it just reinforces how much I don't like the pick.
Yeah. Yeah, the contract, which I agree is very well deserved, to me just emphasizes how good this team is, that the team knows how good it is, and it does, as Kevin said, make the draft pick a little bit puzzling, and not even just because of, the skill players that they could have had who could have contributed immediately, like Mekhi Lemon, but for me, it's just about mitigating risk. Devontae Adams is on the other side of 30. If he misses any games this year, and we saw points last year, they were able to survive it, but you really want to go in without wide receiver depth or the offensive linemen. Stafford is phenomenal, but his play does decline under pressure, as often the case with older quarterbacks. If the Rams were to lose an offensive tackle, do you think they would have wished they had drafted another lineman, for example, in the first round? So it just feels to me like The roster is fine. The roster is great. But players get hurt in the NFL, and I can't help but wonder, come December, if we'd be having a different conversation.
Very intrigued to see the Rams play 5 tight ends at the same time if Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams are not available this upcoming season. The only thing I would add, and I'm not arguing with what you guys said, but this is an organization that we know is very comfortable and very aggressive, either trading for players or trying to trade for players in season. We saw them try to trade for Christian McCaffrey a couple years ago. They offered 2 first-round picks and even more, reportedly, for Brian Burns. They're willing to make that big deal if they felt like they needed something to go over the top. So I would just say, let's be a little patient, see what happens at the trade deadline. If they do have a tackle go down, if they do have a wide receiver get hurt, if they need something, I feel very confident Leslie can go and trade picks next year. And one of the reasons why he can is because he has that quarterback he feels like he has for the future.
And just to be clear, just talking to people today, sources about the Stafford deal, they $55 million next year, but only 5 of that's guaranteed. So they could still be on a year-to-year situation with him and maybe go to Ty Simpson next year.
Well, there's 3 new interior offensive linemen, including a new center, who might be Corey Bullock, who would be new to starting an NFL game. He hasn't done that before. This were last year with Tyler Linderbaum at center, Todd Monken at OC. They're running the same offense. Okay, not really a big deal. But with this situation, would have been nice to have him there.
Yeah, the newness is going to be intriguing, particularly the scheme. Declan Doyle, bit of a mystery, coming from Chicago. Assumption it'll be more under center, outside zone, play action off of that, which I think could be a great fit for not just Lamar, but a lot of the players already on the team. Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews. They drafted a couple of large receivers, Elijah Surratt and Jacoby Lane, who I think makes sense for that offense. But to Bill's point, you got to see it all come together first, and I think it's going to be one of the more interesting developments in the league.
Lamar has been there earlier
Correct.
in the OTA period. I just don't believe, maybe a 3 out of 10 on the concern scale. I just don't believe any of the things that happen in May and June matter when it comes to September and October. Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback in history, greatest teammate in history, guy who cared about winning more than anything, he skipped OTAs all the time. Didn't end up mattering. So I think it's a story, obviously, we need to talk about when he's not there. But the attendance, he's there, he's not there. For any player this time of year, not that important.
Yeah, I kind of feel like when if the Ravens get bounced from the playoffs, we're not going to be sitting here saying, this is probably because Lamar wasn't there in the 3rd week of May.
I'll say it.
Yeah, you'll say it?
Yeah,
All right,
fire off that tweet.
That's good. Well, we'll see. We'll see if he's there next week. I don't know if they have OTAs next week. I haven't checked the schedule, but I'm sure we'll